Okay, so as our custom is we're going to say a few stories quickly, and then we'll learn some halacha for a few minutes. Short class tonight, and so um, tonight's story. Thank you, Rebecca, for suggesting the story of Yosef Moker Shabbos. Yosef Moker Shabbos is a story told by the Gemara, Tractate of Shabbos, page 119. The Gemara tells a story of a person, his name was Yosef. This Yosef very much adored Shabbos and spent all his money that he earned throughout the week, he would spend to make a beautiful Shabbos. Whatever he had available, he bought the best foods and the best delicacies, and fish especially was his specialty, to buy fish, the Kavod Shabbos Kodesh. And didn't go unnoticed, of course, as nothing goes unnoticed by Hashem. And he had a neighbor, a Gentile neighbor, who was a wealthy man, who doesn't clearly say if he had what kind of relationship he had with Yosef Moker Shabbos, if he knew of him too much, but he was a wealthy man, and one day when the stargazers comes to him and tells him that they see in the horoscopes and in what they see in the stars, that all his money is going to go to Yosef, who is known as Yosef Moker Shabbos. Yosef is the one who really adores Shabbos. So he hears what they're saying, that he's going to lose all his wealth, and it's going to go to Yosef Moker Shabbos. So he decides to put all his monies into his valuables into buying one extremely expensive pearl. And he buys this very, very super expensive pearl, and it's worth all his valuables. And he puts it in an expert manner. He has it placed into a hat. And this Gentile will never take his hat off. He's always wearing his hat at all times to make sure that he could safeguard his stone. So one day he's walking down the street, and to his surprise, there is a great wind, and he's by the bridge that's crossing over the water, and his hat flies off his head and falls into the water. And before he has a chance to even try to get it back, a huge fish comes and swallows the hat. So he lost his very precious pearl. On that Friday afternoon, the fishermen are fishing right before Shabbos, and they catch this really beautiful big fish that was traditionally, being such a beautiful big fish, would be very expensive to sell. But the problem was it was so close to Shabbos, they didn't know who would want to buy it for Shabbos, who had the money to spend on such a big fish so close to Shabbos. So they said, go to Yosef Moker Shabbos. He's always ready to pay whatever it costs to have the best foods. So even if he already purchased fish for Shabbos, surely he could buy this fish as well to make even a better quality fish for his Shabbos meal. So they go to Yosef Moker Shabbos, and they present him this beautiful fish, and they ask for a very high price. And again, because Yosef loves Shabbos so much, he doesn't hesitate, and he buys the fish. And as it so happens, of course, as Hashem gifted him, he opens the fish to prepare it quickly for Shabbos, and he finds that fish actually was there's this great precious pearl in the belly of the fish, and he becomes a super, super wealthy person. And this is a story, of course, told about the unique approach and the unique avoda that Yosef Moker Shabbos had towards Shabbos, and the reward Hashem gave him in this world, sure, more than as well as the reward he gets in the world to come, for keeping Shabbos and Shabbos being dear to him, and spending all beautiful monies for Shabbos to make sure that it should be the most beautiful experience. I just want to add to this because thank you, Rebecca, for inspiring us to tell over this story. And like I said, going forward, we're all ears for options. If someone wants a story to be told before Shabbos, let me know, and we'll tell that story if possible on Motzaei Shabbos. And if you want to tell the story, you could ask me, and just to make sure that it's something for the class and in the atmosphere of the class. Once it's all understood, then you have a few minutes to tell over a story. if you choose. Now, I just wanted to add to the story of Yosef Moker Shabbos, again, thank you, Rebecca, is that I had this week, my wife and I, most of our kids are away for the summer. So we have just our youngest with us. And my wife said, it's a very hot Shabbos. Today was close to 100 degrees in Yerushalayim. So my wife is like, let's just have a really quiet Shabbos this week and just relax. And, there's the heat. We can't go out. But of course, unfortunately, there was people that needed meals for Shabbos. And up until like a few minutes before Shabbos, we were getting texts from people who wanted to know if we were making Shabbos. So we really kind of kept to our plan. And we told others, maybe if they could find other meals. But there was one person who had a feeling would not find another meal. So I told him that, he should come home with me after shul. We're going to have a small meal, nothing great, but, he could join whatever I'm eating. He'll eat, the cholent, etc. And when I come to shul, after the kiddush, and we do daven mincha before because that's the custom in our shul. So we're davening mincha, and one of the bachurim who's traveling says, listen, do you have a place for us for Shabbos lunch? So I said, listen, we have we didn't really make food for a lot of guests this week. So, but whatever we have, we'll divide it by guests. He goes, how many? I thought it was just one person. He goes, I'm 3 people. So I said, okay. So I came home with 4 guests for Shabbos instead of the 1 that I agreed. And of course, my wife set the table, quickly added the settings to the table, and graciously we had what we had. And so at the table, I asked the boys who were traveling. I said, it's Yerushalayim, of course, a big city. There's a lot of options. I was just wondering. I said, where do you guys eat Friday night? Where do you eat Leil Shabbos? So they said, actually, that's why I'm telling the story, because this is quite amazing, like Yosef Moker Shabbos. So they said, well, we kind of split up because 2 of us went to a Sheva Brachas, and then the other ones, I think we either were trying to find a meal, what have you. So by the time we came to the Sheva Brachas, for some reason, the Sheva Brachas, the meal was over. So they had no place to eat. It was dinner. And it's already 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. So they said they're going to go to Meir Sharim. Meir Sharim is the area of the ultra religious Haredi community, where they have the Hasidim from places like the Toldos Aaron Rebbe's Hasidim and the Satmar Rebbe's Hasidim. Others Chabad Hasidim are there, but the Meir Sharim is known as the place, the old Jewish quarter for the Hasidic quarter of Yerushalayim, Meir Sharim. So people who've been to Yerushalayim know of Meir Sharim, Rechov Malchei Yisro, and Rechov Meir Sharim. So they said they went to Meir Sharim, and they said, we knew that there's a person called Yoelish, and Yoelish is traditionally a Satmar name. So because the Satmar Chassidim are called after the Rebbe of Yoelish. So he says, there's a person called Yoelish. He said, did you know who he is? He says, no, we have no idea. We just know there's a person called Yoelish, and anyone could go eat by him. And this is 11:30 at night by the time they got there. I said, did you know where Yoelish lives? They said, no. Yoelish, we went to Meir Sharim, and we asked, where's Yoelish? Now, it's saying Yoelish, it's going into a place where the Satmar community lives, if I'm assuming right, that this person's from Satmar. So this is the name, and I didn't have time to investigate because I just heard the story Shabbos afternoon lunch. So he said, the name Yoelish is like saying the name Mendy in Chabad, like, where's Mendy live? Which Mendy are you talking about? There could be hundreds of Mendys, hundreds of Yoelishes. This is, where's Yoelish? And right away, anyone in Meir Sharim knew exactly who they meant. Means that although there could be many Yoelishes in Meir Sharim, and there's thousands and thousands of people living in Meir Sharim, they guided them to this house, and he said they were waiting, and he had a tent outside the house, and people were coming, and people were still coming even after they came. And the notwithstanding of just showing up at someone's house at 11:30 at night, the person welcomed them, fed them, gave them a full meal. He had a full meal, everything ready. So that's the idea of Yosef Moker Shabbos. Is not something of a story that happened just in the times of the Talmud and page on Seches Shabbos, page 119. But it's a story that even till today, there's people that really, really love Shabbos, and they show it in their Achnasis Orchim, and they're inviting guests. But this is just an incredible testament of a testimony of what the Jewish people's connection to Shabbos is, and how Shabbos is such an important part. And so for us, we just finished the laws of Shabbos in our weekday class. So it's incredible to see how people just mamish cherish Shabbos. So just a quick story before we start learning the halachos on something that's connected to the Parsha. So in this week's Parsha, of course, we have the second part of the Shema that mentions the idea of the mezuzah. So there's a story told of the Alter Rebbe who had a chassid that was visiting from Klimowitz. I think that's the name. And he says, I have a favor for you. On your way home, he says, from seeing me, meaning in Klimowitz, going to Klimowitz, the Alter Rebbe says, can I ask you to go to a town in Yonovitz? Hey, Julie. And if you could go to Reb Ruvain the Sofer, Reb Ruvain the scribe, and ask him to make me a few mezuzahs and bring them back to me first. So this Malamed, this teacher, of course, this Rebbe asked him to go to Yanowitz and speak to Reb Ruvain the Sofer, the scribe. Surely he's going to go and he's going to get the mezuzahs. But he thought also, why don't I already buy mezuzahs for myself as well? Because if the Alter Rebbe thinks this person is a good sofer, so surely he's a good sofer for me now. Though to buy extra mezuzahs, he had mezuzahs, it's expensive, and he's just a poor teacher. And the Reb Reuven was an expert scribe. So the mezuzahs, and because being an expert scribe doesn't just mean that he could write nicely. Being an expert scribe means he knows all the kavanot, all the intentions, and the Arizal, and all the Kabbalistic intentions, and goes to the mikveh every time. He writes every word in the highest level of holiness. So it's not just he sits, grabs a piece of parchment, and because he has a good name, he could charge more. It takes him so much, it takes tremendous effort for Reb Reuven to make a mezuzah because of his of how diligent and how precious it is, each mezuzah and each word that he writes in the mezuzah. It's like the labor of a regular scribe to make 10, 20 mezuzahs. So of course his prices are a bit more expensive because it's very time consuming for him to make his mezuzahs on the standard that he works at. So the Malamed figured that although it's going to be more expensive than the average mezuzah, but he's ready to pay the extra money if this person is such a good scribe that the Alter Rebbe himself would send get him to make mezuzahs. So he says, sure, I'll make both of you mezuzahs, but you'll have to wait a few days. So he says, fine. He'll wait a few days. So he waits a few days in Yanowitz. He comes back, and Reb Reuven comes to him and says, listen, this is the deal. There's two parcels here. One parcel is the Alter Rebbe's mezuzahs, and those you should not touch, and you must give them to Alter Rebbe. And here in the second parcel, these are the mezuzahs I made at the highest level, but they're for you. But these are yours, and this is the Rebbe's. Don't just give the Rebbe, if you bought 10 altogether, 5 for you, 5 for the Rebbe. These are the Rebbe's, and these are yours. Now, of course, the person's curiosity, and let's even say suspicion, kind of was triggered. And he figured to himself, what could be, why, what's so special about that? What's the difference between his mezuzahs and the Alter Rebbe's mezuzahs? So he figured to himself, you know what? I'm going to switch. I'm going to give the Alter Rebbe my mezuzahs. And I'm going to take the Alter Rebbe's mezuzahs. Because we both bought mezuzahs. We both paid the money for it. Why should Alter Rebbe, why is he giving different kind of mezuzahs? I'm not going to go into the reasoning, the logic that this young Malamed thought that this was a good thing or right thing to do. But that's what he decided to do. So he comes to the Alter Rebbe, and he presents to the Alter Rebbe the parcel that was presented for him, not for the Alter Rebbe, but for himself. And he kept the Alter Rebbe's mezuzahs in his pocket. The Alter Rebbe is excited. He gets the new mezuzahs that he asked from Ramosha the scribe, Reuven the scribe. He opens them up. He examines them thoroughly, and he says, "This is not possible. These are my mezuzahs. There's no way these are my mezuzahs. There's a mistake here." So now the teacher really realized that he made a mistake, and he feels embarrassed. So he kind of tried to, explain that he made a mistake and it wasn't his intention. And he presented to the Alter Rebbe the proper mezuzahs that were for the Alter Rebbe. When the Alter Rebbe opened them up, he said, "Oh, beautiful! These are my mezuzahs." And he thanked his student for the efforts. He went to go and come back in a few days later. Now this Melamed was upset, because although he did obviously something wrong, he was doing something wrong, but he felt that he was cheated by the scribe. Why would the scribe have made mezuzahs that the Baal Shem, when the Alter Rebbe looked at them, he said, "These are not my mezuzahs, they're no good." So he felt that he was given the no good mezuzahs, and he paid a top premium for these mezuzahs because of the efforts Reb Reuven does in making the mezuzahs on such a high level. So he goes back to the city of Yanowitz, and he comes in and he's, makes, kind of says that, I presented by mistake. He says, my mezuzahs, the Alter Rebbe, and he looked at them and he said they're not his mezuzahs, and I gave him his mezuzahs. He was happy. You sold me faulty mezuzahs, and he's like accusing, and as opposed to maybe apologizing. So this Reuben the scribe says, "Hey, buddy, relax. These mezuzahs are fine. They're beautiful mezuzahs. They're 100% kosher. And I did them. I went to the mikveh. I did all the labors that I do in all my mezuzahs. The difference between your mezuzahs and the Alter Rebbe's mezuzahs was that I already have pre-instruction from the Alter Rebbe that my mezuzahs that I write for him have to be written when the moon is full, which is the 15th of the month. That's the only time I could write the Alter Rebbe's mezuzahs, and that's why I told you to wait, because I had to wait till you came on the 13th or the 12th of the month, and I needed to wait till the full moon. So your mezuzahs I made earlier, because you don't have that requirement of a full moon mezuzah. That's a private, specific requirement of the Alter Rebbe. And therefore, the Alter Rebbe noticed that his mezuzahs that I wrote were not written on the full moon. Because the Alter Rebbe, of course, is a tzaddik, and that's what tzaddikim do. They know these things. So it's nothing to get excited about. So he apologized, and he went on his way. And not, there's always a lesson to a story. I'm not sure what the lesson 100% is, but that's a story that's connected to the ideas of mezuzahs. One just quick story before we start halachos about on Eretz Yisrael, which this week's parsha is so much about Eretz Yisrael. So the Reb Nachum of Chernobyl. So Reb Nachum Chernobyler was Reb Nachum was his brother, his son. There's the Rebbe of Square and the Rebbe of Rachmat Skrifka were brothers. And so they were sons, of Mordechai Chernobyl. Mordechai was the son of Nachum Chernobyl. So the Rachmat Skrifka Rebbe and the Skver Rebbe were brothers. So when the Rachmat Skrifka Rebbe came to visit the Skver Rebbe, once still today, there's a Rachmat Skrifka Rebbe over here, not far from where I'm sitting, the Twerskis, and there's a Square Rebbe, which is in the New Square in New York. So they're from the same dynasty, from the Chernobyl dynasty, which is the Twersky family. So when one time the Rachmat Skrifka Rebbe was coming to visit his older brother, the Square Rebbe, and in his honor, the Square Rebbe took out a special wine that was sent to him from Eretz Yisrael. And because he had a special guest, his brother, which was the Rachmat Skrifka Rebbe, he wanted to have at the tish, at the table, the special wine from Eretz Yisrael. Wow, wine from Eretz Yisrael. Those days, today you go to every supermarket and you buy wine from Eretz Yisraal. We think it's okay. It's regular to buy the Israeli vintages, whether it is Golan or Yarden or such, etc. But it was not common. Not that today it's any less special to buy wine from Eretz Yisrael. But then it was not just special because it's coming from Eretz Yisrael. It was also unique, the opportunity to have wine from Eretz Yisrael. And the Rachmat Skrifka Rebbe says he won't touch the wine. And his brother, the Square Rebbe, is very offended. Like, is maybe something he knows that's wrong with the wine. Like, he bought this special wine made by special people that do it also with the great attention and great care, and to make sure that there's no issues of trumas and maestros and orla, etc. All the laws are kept, and it's done in the highest level and standard. Why would his brother, the Rachmat Skrifka Rebbe, not drink the wine? So he said to him, listen, it's nothing to do with it. It's amazing wine. It's kosher, the highest level. It's mamish. I don't want any suspicion on the quality of the wine. The problem is, he says, is that I'm no wine expert, and being as I'm just an amateur wine drinker, for me, I know that when I drink this wine, it's gonna taste to me like all wines taste, but it's wine, Kiddush wine. I'm not gonna see anything special about this wine. There's no way. I don't have a fine palate for wines, and I don't want that if I taste Eretz Yisrael's wine, I'm gonna think, okay, it tastes like all other wines, because I don't have confidence that I'm gonna be able to taste the uniqueness of drinking a wine from Eretz Yisrael. And because of that, I'd rather not drink the wine, so I shouldn't chas v'shalom give bad thoughts or a bad name. It says everything that's special about Eretz Yisrael, even its wine, especially wine, is made from grapes, which is one of the 7 fruit that we mentioned in this week's parsha. So those are the few stories we're telling on this week's parsha on this Motzaei Shabbos. We have 10 minutes. Now let's go to the laws of Sefer Torah. So we're holding the laws of Sefer Torah, chapter 23. We're holding law number. Hold on, let's figure out how to move this. Sorry. Problem. It's just the video is in the middle of the page. Gotta move this. Here we go. Okay. Okay, so we're holding law number 12. Okay. So it says like this. Let's say there was no Kohen in the synagogue to be called up first for the Krias HaTorah. Or there was a Kohen, but they didn't know that he was there. And we called, like we said, we called Yisrael, become Kohen, Yisrael in the place of the Kohen. And then he went up. He said the opening statement, not the bracha, but the Baruch Hashem and Baruch that we make as we're about to start the brachot for Krias HaTorah on the aliyah. We didn't start the blessing Asher Brachabanu, which is the complete blessing that we make when someone gets an aliyah called up to the Torah. So there is no kohen at the time, or there was a kohen, they didn't know about it, and they called the Yisrael b'mkom kohen. They called the Yisrael in the place of the kohen, and he gets up, then he really says Baruch Hashem HaMevarach, but he doesn't make yet the blessing Asher Brachabanu. Uba hakoyen Aishiniskra Shiashna. So either the kohen walks in, or they realize that there's a kohen. Kohen is a kohen va'ilad. So then, even though the person's standing there and already said Baruch Hashem HaMevarach, but didn't make the bracha Asher Brachabanu, they call the kohen up. Va'omer gamhu Baruch Hu, and he says the Baruch Hu, etc., and then he gets the aliyah. Va'Yisraeli kadei shelo yispayesh. But now they have a second person standing there, the person who got the aliyah initially, who is an Israelite, and it could be embarrassing for him to go through this experience. He should stay by the bima, by the Sefer Torah, while they call up the Kohen, and now that they have a Kohen, they'll call up a Levi after the Kohen, if there is one. And then they should call up the Yisrael. So he doesn't lose, his opportunity to have an aliyah, he just doesn't get the first aliyah. However, im kvar amar Yisrael it's Hashem, mina bracha bar, if the Yisrael who got the first aliyah, and then the Kohen walks in, but he had already made the bracha of Asher Brachabanu, Sha'amar Baruch Atah Hashem, Shuv Eine Oila Kohen, then it's too late, the Kohen doesn't go up. Same thing would apply if they call a Levi and a Kohen comes in, and again, he said Baruch Hu Hashem, but he didn't make the full blessing, then the Kohen comes up, and then the Levi would get the aliyah afterwards. All the same things apply. The Levi waits, and then he gets the second aliyah. The same thing would be if there was no Levi. We didn't know about it. Now, here's a tricky scenario. The law is that if you have a kohen who gets called up for the first aliyah, and there's no Levite, which happens today, for some reason, I'm a Levi myself, but there's sometimes, for some reason, there's a shortage of Levium, even though technically that should be more difficult. There's at least from my experience, there's many more Kohanim than there are Levites. And it's not even equal. So if you can go to a shul, you could have 4 or 5 Kohanim, you could have 1 Levi. So, and then sometimes you don't have a Levi. So what happens if there's no Levi and you call up a Kohen? So that same Kohen gets the aliyah twice. To call another Kohen, you can't, because then it's maybe we're saying as if the first Kohen was not qualified. And you don't call the Yisrael. So you do the Kohen twice. So let's say you call the Kohen up once. You didn't know if there was a Levi in the shul. You checked, you thought there was no Levi, or you thought, or the Levi wasn't there. And so the Kohen goes up for the second aliyah twice. He says, Baruch Hu Hashem HaMevorach. Before he makes the blessing, they say, oh, we realize there is a Kohen in the Levi in the room, or Levi walks into the room. So the same thing applies, that the Kohen would move to the side and let the Levi take his aliyah, and then he would call up Yisrael afterwards. The Kohen doesn't need to get a second aliyah because he already got a first aliyah, so it's obviously less embarrassing for him, this experience, than if the Levi was pushed to the side or Yisrael was pushed to the side. And afterwards, Bohalevi Koidim Shamar Koyen, Baruch Hashem Koyim Halevi Vayla. If they didn't say Baruch Hashem, then we call up the Levi. Otherwise, if it's too late, then the Kohen continues with this aliyah. Okay, let's see the footnotes. Despite the fact that the first Ola was already said Baruch Hu, so even though he said Baruch Hu, the Yisrael yields to the side to let the Kohen come up. Let's do another law. In koirim shnei achim zachar zachar. This is another aliyah that some people, you have to, when you have sometimes a simcha, like a bar mitzvah or a wedding, and you want to make sure that you could give all the people of the party, of the bar mitzvah especially, an aliyah, so you have to be careful not to call two brothers up one after the next. So ein koirim shnei achim zachar zachar. You don't call two brothers one after the next. Bein sheim min ha'av bein min ha'em. Whether they are full brothers or half brothers, meaning that they're only brothers from the father or brothers from the mother. So too, again, if you have a simcha, you want to give the grandfather an aliyah and the father an aliyah and the son an aliyah. So you don't do the father and the son, oy ben benoy, or a father and a grandson next to each other. It says it's not to be done for an evil eye. Evil eye is something that we kind of sometimes pay attention to. Ayin hara. Even if they say we're okay, it's too difficult we're trying to get in as many aliyahs as possible, and it's going to be too difficult to pace them out. Even if one is going to get the last aliyah, one is going to get them after, then we don't do it. But after, even if they're moichel, even if they say that we're okay, we forgo the concern of the ayin hara. But after this is only talking about in the case where it's a regular Shabbos, where the maftir is the continuation or a repeat of the seventh aliyah, like Akiv was. Sefer Torah achar lemaftir mutter. But if there's going to be a separate Sefer Torah, let's say Rosh Chodesh or Yom Tovim, or the 4 weeks, so then it's okay to have the last aliyah be a brother and a father, etc., and then the son or the grandson to take them after. And so too, if the person of the bar mitzvah of the maftir is not 13 yet, according to those who will call up someone for an aliyah under the age of 13. But if by mistake they did that, the Gabe didn't realize, so then once you're called up, you don't go down. Sorry. When you have two brothers, the only two brothers from the mother's side, or a father and a grandson. He says, what's the scenario? Hold on. If two brothers who have the same mother but have different fathers, or a father and his grandson were already called up, they have not yet come up, they may ascend to the bima. So in the case, he says that you call up and it's already they go up, so then they don't go down. That's only talking about full brothers from the father. But if it's a case of only half brothers from the mother, or a father and a grandson, a grandfather and a grandson, then if they just called them, they didn't go up yet, then they could go up. There's a difference if you get called and you don't go up. Then if you call and you go up. If you call and you go up, means you're oila to the aliyah, you elevate to the aliyah. So then you don't go down because you don't want to shame them. But if you didn't go up yet, so then then someone else comes and you call someone else. But in the case that it's a father, a grandfather, or half brothers from the mother's side, then even if they didn't go up yet, because it's not a full-fledged relationship, so then you could even go up. You don't have to you don't have to call someone else. And also, he says in a case where for whatever reason it's important that we have to call these two people and we can't break it up. So two brothers from the mother's side and a grandson and a grandfather could be called up next to each other in the case where there's a few options. Okay, we're going to stop here. Let's make sure let's just see quickly the footnotes. What is the ayin hara? The ayin hara is for fear of creating ill will, which can be harmful. Some people may look at it as, oh, why is the same family getting aliyahs twice? Achron is the last aliyah before maftir. 25 is though Kaddish interrupts between Achron and maftir, nevertheless, we shouldn't call up two brothers or a father and a son or a grandson for that matter, if it's with one Sefer Torah. And 26, he says, Bima is where the reader stands. If they go up and the reader's to the place, then they don't go down. But in the case of half brothers, in other words, two brothers of the same mother or father and a grandson, if you just call them up, then they could go up. And 28 is, okay, it's a longer one. He says that congregants whose custom is not to call the olim by name may call all the above consecutively. Okay, that's the Aruch HaChaim. So the Aruch HaChaim says, and so he also quotes the Shar Ephraim, that if you don't call up by name, you just call up Yamod, Shishi, Yamod, Shvi. So then, because people don't realize that they're brothers, then it's allowed. Accordingly, since the person who are called for Hagba, the raising of the Sefer Torah upon completion of the reading, and Galila, the rules that rolling up the Sefer Torah, who are not usually called by name, Hagba and Galila may be performed by two brothers, etc. So the response of the Avni Chayfetz. So Avni Chayfetz says so too, because today most people don't have the custom to call up the person who does Hagba or Galila by name. So too, it's okay to have two brothers or a father-son to do the Hagba and Galila. Okay, everyone, and especially in Chabad, where the custom is with the Hagba and Galila are done together, and the Galila that we do is just the tying of the Torah. All right, I want to wish everyone a Shavua Tov. Any questions before we finish the class? Alrighty, Laila Tov, everyone. Thank you for joining Shavua Tov.
Thank you.
Welcome.